Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the University of Dundee Master of Education webinar. My name is Helen Spiropoulos. I'm the Admissions Manager at Stafford Global, and joining me this evening all the way from the University of Dundee is Dr. Richard. Good evening to you, Dr. Richard.
Hello, Helen, and good to see you, and welcome everybody as well.
Good, yes, it's a very, slightly chilly welcome from the UAE, but I can see that we do have quite a few applicants from the UAE and even from Africa, and I can see also from Saudi Arabia. Welcome this evening. How we are going to do this presentation this evening is I'm just briefly going to introduce you to Stafford Global, and then I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Richard, who's going to take you through the program. And right at the end of the presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask me or Dr. Richard any questions. Please note that I am going to be looking at these questions in the background, and I am going to group them together because a lot of the questions are similar, if not identical. Okay, so let's get started. Now, who is Stafford Global? Now, Stafford Global was established in 1993, and we are a resource center for distance learning education in the Middle East. Now, currently, we are the resource center for 6 UK universities, one of which is the University of Dundee, and we have been in partnership with the University of Dundee for many years now. Now, we do offer a variety of programs, ranging from certificates to diplomas, bachelor degrees, MBAs, right through until doctorates. So we really do have all the programs that would suit your personal and your professional needs. Now, the fact that you're here this evening with us means that you have been in communication with one of our experienced academic consultants, and our job is to make sure that we send a very, very strong application to the university and get that very, very important unconditional offer for you. Okay, I'm now going to hand you over to Dr. Richard, and I will be joining you towards the end of the presentation. Over to you, Dr. Richard.
So thank you, Helen, and welcome everybody again from also equally quite chilly but also sunny Dundee. It's coming up to sunset here because we're quite far north, but it's a nice day. Although it is a little bit cold today. If I was able to point out of my window, I could point you out towards the city of Dundee and the River Tay. If you want to find out a little bit more about the city, we're about an hour's drive or train north of Edinburgh, and it's a great city. And as Helen said, we've been doing work with Stafford for a good number of years, and I've been working on the Masters programme and also with Stafford Associate students for quite a number of years. My name is Richard Holme. I'm a reader and lecturer in education studies, and I have been previously the programme lead for the Master of Education programme. I'm also a tutor and a lecturer on the programme, and I work with part-time learners, the course that you're interested in studying, as well as some full-time learners, and I work on a variety of other courses as well. My background and interest, I was originally a primary school teacher. I've also worked in secondary or high school for a while, and I've been at the university for more than 10 years now. If you're interested in reading some of my research, I have looked into professional development and professional learning of teachers, and that's a big aspect of what we're going to be telling you tonight about as part of the Master of Education programme. So that's just a little bit about myself. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the University of Dundee now. So as I've mentioned, we're a university in Scotland, to the north of the UK, north of Edinburgh. We're not a huge distance away from the other cities of Glasgow and Aberdeen as well. So a relatively central position. We work with students face-to-face on campus from undergraduate level all the way through to PhD level, and we also have a long history of working with online learners, distance learners like yourselves. Now, one of the things that we really pride ourselves in at the University of Dundee is that we make a difference. We have a range of different courses and programs that are very practice focused, and what I mean by that is we've got a large medical school. In our own department, our own school, we also have the faculty for law, and we also have education and associated disciplines such as community education and social work. Now, it's likely that you've come from a school education background, and if so, then the staff that will be working with you have got strong expertise and knowledge in that area as well. We think as a university, we take an enterprising approach, and we have a long history of working locally and a strong reputation, but also we have global partners all around the world too. We're a modern university, and we're trying to work on solutions to 21st century problems. And the sort of mission statement or vision statement or tagline that the university uses is that we work to transform lives. The Master of Education program that you're interested in applying for and studying is a good example of a course where you'll have the opportunity to change the lives of young people, or the students or the learners that you work with on a day-to-day basis, and also to transform your own personal life through career development, and also the staff that you're working alongside as you get towards potentially a dissertation research project. They will have the opportunity to work with you and also learn from you. So that's a little bit about the University of Dundee and our ethos and our values. We obviously know that studying at a university is quite a big time commitment, and it can be quite a financial commitment as well. So you want to be sure that you're committing to studying with a reputable university with a good reputation. We do very well in the different university rankings, whether it's nationally or internationally. So some of the resources you might want to find out more about different universities include the Guardian newspaper university guide. There's the World University Rankings, and there's also Times of London Higher Education ranking systems. So in all of these, we've got different awards that we've achieved over the years and different levels of ranking. So that might be something you'd like to learn a little bit more about. But in addition to those formal rankings, we also get very good feedback from students and our alumni. So we'll be talking a little bit about that later at the end of this presentation. So that's a little bit about the University of Dundee and the courses that we offer and the way that we operate. The Master of Education, or the MEd as I'll be referring it to today, is a master's level qualification. It's very similar, and the status of it and the level of it is exactly the same as an MA or an MBA or an MSc. But because you're a professional based in the education sector, then it will be an MEd, a Master of Education. It's focused on professional development, and we encourage you to learn more about reflective practice, work-based inquiry, and we'll give you an opportunity to carry out some action research into the way that you teach and the way that you work with the learners and the young people. Now, an important point to make is because this course is designed for people who are already in a professional setting or who have gained professional experience previously, this course does not offer QTS or GTCS qualification for teaching in a UK state school. Now, this is important to note this because sometimes people see that within the course you've got the opportunity to achieve a postgraduate certificate or a postgraduate diploma or the full MEd. So there's 3 different points which you can leave the course and graduate with, but that's not the same as the PGCE qualification that a lot of UK universities offer. So do bear that in mind, that if you're thinking about this as a teaching qualification, it is worth checking first with where it is you're intending to work to see if what you have already studied and what you've already got will qualify you for that. So if you're unsure, seek international guidance from whichever the relevant government or registry body is on that. And we can answer more questions about that towards the end if you have questions on that. So the MEd programme, to give a brief overview, we offer a part-time online learning approach with also a fast-track option. So that gives you the flexibility to complete the entire MEd in between 3 and 2 years. We use what's called a blended learning approach, and we do focus your studies and the modules on your practice and your experience. We are recognised and accredited both by the GTCS and also by the International Baccalaureate Organisation, and I will tell you a little bit more about the International Baccalaureate IB routes shortly. And we've got students from all sorts of sectors of education and also dotted around and placed around not just the UK but worldwide. We have an interactive map that we use with our students where they can add themselves to that map. And I love looking at this every year to see the broad stretch of students from different time zones and different positions and parts around the world. And one of my colleagues talks quite warmly about running online webinars where somebody may be joining from Japan. It might be late at night, and then somebody who's possibly based in North America or South America, and they are joining it. It's early morning for them. So you've got people joining, learning together to study remotely from all around the world. And we've also got a variety of different routes and approaches to teaching throughout the course. So you're already interested in master's level study, working on a course like the MEd. So why would you do it? There's a range of reasons for doing this. And back before I came to work in the university, I studied for a master's myself. For my personal reason for doing it, I studied an online part-time master's, a little bit like you're considering here. And for me, it was about developing my practice, becoming a better teacher and educator, and then I could utilize that in my day-to-day teaching when I was in the classroom. And as a result of that, I learned more. I think I got better as a teacher, and my job was more fulfilling. And it also gave me the chance to extend and develop my career. And then later on, I went in to work in higher education university and also to complete a PhD. So we've got lots of reasons for studying around extending your knowledge, improving career prospects, and there's also things like transferable skills, working together with people, enhancing your digital skills, working on research reports as well. And also, we talked at the beginning about this idea of transforming lives. It gives you a chance to view things differently. So when I was a student studying to a master's, I was looking at the topic of classroom management and behaviour management. And I was working with a group of children, a class who'd had some challenges through their time in the primary school, elementary school I'd worked with, and they were coming to me. So I did research in this area and I learned more about it. And through those studies, I changed my approach. I changed the way that I worked with those young people and the way that I worked in future. And it transformed my practice and it changed the way that I saw the world, in my opinion, for the better. So certainly a transformational experience. So why would you choose to study an MEd at the University of Dundee? I've mentioned our international reputation and our educational expertise. We've also got strong connections and links to different education agencies. This includes the General Teaching Council for Scotland, and Education Scotland is another organisation we work with closely. And we've also mentioned the International Baccalaureate. But all the staff members who will be supporting you as module leaders, as tutors, as supervisors if you do a dissertation research project, they've all got strong links themselves as well. As I've said, we're a multinational cohort. You could be working one day with somebody from if you're in UAE, from possibly quite close by. Somebody might even already know might be on the course with you. Then the next time you might be communicating with on a module and working with somebody who is based in Scotland, and then another time it might be somebody who's in an international school in another part of the world. It might be in the Far East, it could be in Australia, the United States, it could be absolutely anywhere. We do try to focus everything that we do on your practice, so it'll have an impact for you as a teacher and help you develop as a professional. And also a key element of this course is that we will try to develop your leadership skills as well. And alongside that is the ability to use research and to use that to inform your practice and to help you in your career. So the way that we operate the Master of Education at Dundee is we have a range of specialisms or named awards. Now you might choose to not to select a particular specialism and just to choose modules or courses that you are interested in. And if you were to do that and you were to select a range of different modules, you would exit with a named award of Master Education in Leading, Learning and Teaching. However, we also have several specific named awards if you wanted to select certain modules, develop a certain specialism through the MEd and follow a particular route. And these are educational leadership, international education, inclusive education, or nursery and early education. So these are the various optional modules. And if you are deciding to complete the full MEd, the full Master of Education programme, that is 6 modules in total. Each module is worth 30 credits, or it's the equivalent of 6 modules, and each module is worth 30 credits. So you would do 2 core modules, which would be reflecting upon practice and a research methods module, and you would also do a double module dissertation project at the end. And then this is where you would get to choose your optional modules. So you'd be able to select 2 modules from this selection here, either international education, inclusive education, well-being of children and young people, innovation in education, or leadership and organizational development. Now, there is also the option for the International Baccalaureate, and I'll mention that next. But basically, if you were choosing to do leading, learning and teaching as your named award, you could pick any 2 modules you want, and then your double module dissertation would focus on a topic that you were interested in. And that was a route that I took as a student. I wanted to develop a generalist approach, so I did a module on innovation in education, and I also did a module on educational leadership. So I put those together, and that gave me a generic Master of Education in Leading, Learning and Teaching. Other people might choose to say specialize in international education. So on that basis, you would pick the International in Education Named Award, which you can see as the 3rd line down here. You would then pick the International Education module and another optional module, which could be something like the Leadership and Organizational Development module. Your dissertation would then focus on international education as well, and that would give you that specialism in international education. And it goes, the same thing works for the other named awards too. Now, the slight difference here is if you choose to take the International Baccalaureate route, and here we would have particular routes designed for you using the modules that we already offer, but at the end of it, you would then apply to the International Baccalaureate for one of these certificates. So the 3 certificates that we have available, the first one is a certificate in leadership practice. So you would study for a postgraduate certificate, which is 2 modules, it's only 60 credits, and you don't need any International Baccalaureate experience at all for that. If you wanted to go for either the Advanced Certificate in Leadership Research or the Advanced Certificate in Learning and Teaching Research, for both of those you would do the full MEd, which is 180 credits. And the first one, the certificate, the Advanced Certificate in Leadership Research, you don't need any IB experience. So what we would do is you would have a module that will give you that level, that experience. If you already have that experience and you're going for the Advanced Certificate in Learning and Teaching Research, then you would follow a different route, but you would need to have those 3 years experience in an IB school. Now this looks quite complicated, so if you're not sure whether you meet the criteria for this, or if you have further questions about this, feel free to get in touch with us and we can explain that to you in a bit more detail. So this is one of the typical routes that includes the IB Advanced Teaching and Learning Research route. So year 1, you would do Reflecting Upon Practice and one of the optional modules. You would then have the choice of exiting with a postgraduate certificate, and that's 60 credits. Year 2 would be another optional module, and this time you would then do the Research Methods core module, and you'd have the option to exit with a postgraduate diploma, which is 120 credits, or what a lot of people choose to do is complete the entire Masters, and your final year would be a year-long dissertation, which is worth 60 credits, and that takes you to your full 180 credits. And the typical part-time route for the IB would involve you taking the IB Reflecting Upon Leadership module in year 1. You would then have an optional module in year 2 alongside the other core modules, and then your dissertation would need to have that IB focus at the end of it. So basically what we're trying to explain to you here is that you've got 3 points along the way where you can achieve a qualification, either after year 1, 60 credits as a postgraduate certificate, year 2, 120 credits is the postgraduate diploma, or year 3 is the full MEd with 180 credits. So what does this mean for your studies? Well, if you were to study part-time, the normal way of working, and we have 2 entry points. We have an entry point in April and then another one at the end of October. So it's a constant rolling program. So it doesn't fit with the regular UK semester times, which normally run from September through to the following summer. So because it's an online part-time course, there's this constant rolling recruitment and starting points. So you would, if you take the part-time route, you could do 130 credits module, say if you chose to start in April, and you would be studying for about 17 weeks. Of that, the first 10 to 12 weeks, you get support from a tutor. There will be webinars online for you. There'll be a chance for you to engage in discussion groups, and then you will submit your assignment, and then there'll be a short break while your assignment's being marked before you start the next semester. The only difference to that is the final 60 credit dissertation module, where you get 46 weeks to study for that. And the reason we give you longer for that is because you might be choosing to collect data. You might need to apply for ethical approval from the university if you're going to maybe do some questionnaires with young people, or you're going to do some sort of observations, perhaps with colleagues or something like that. You would have to collect that data, go through the ethical approval process. And we know from experience that the dissertation does take more work from that point of view. Now, we recommend a notional study time of somewhere between 15 to 20 hours a week. That does sound like a lot to people, and although you'll have timetabled, or you'll have sessions organised by your module leader for you to join online, we do expect people to do self-study using activities and the resources that are made available to you through our virtual learning environment, which is a portal which you log into and everything's explained to you, and there's videos and there's documents for you to use, and there's links to resources and things like that. So if you don't think that you've got the time at the moment to commit to this, or you're not sure if you have or not, it's something to have a conversation with friends, family, think about from a work perspective as well. Sometimes people manage with slightly less of a time commitment, but what we do find is the people who put that 17.5 hours in a week, and that's reading, and that's engaging with materials, and that's possibly having professional conversations with colleagues about this or with your peers. The students that manage to do that, they do really well. They get extremely good grades, and they're very successful as well. Now, as well as the regular part-time route, we've got a fast-track route, which allows you to complete 2 30-credit modules in 17 weeks. Now, obviously, the notional study time then doubles up. So bear in mind that if you're working full-time, maybe 40 to 50 hours a week in a school, and you try to do the fast-track route, effectively you're doubling the amount of time that you've been working in your day job for your studies as well. So if you choose to do that, again give that some serious consideration. But we do have the option for people to either come off or rejoin the fast-track route at different points. So if you are finding it quite a challenge, you can come off that. There isn't a fast-track route for the dissertation module, and the reason for this is it does take time to get the ethical approval for data collection, and again, from experience, to complete an 11,000 word dissertation project is a considerable amount of work. So having longer to do that and plan that and execute that is a good idea. So moving on now to our entry requirements. So to successfully apply for a place on the Master of Education programme at Dundee, then you must have an undergraduate degree. That can be in any discipline. We're not looking for specialism in pedagogy or a particular educational discipline. So you could have a degree in physics or chemistry, or it could be business administration or finance, or it could be history or geography or English. So as long as you've got an undergraduate degree, you're demonstrating you can work at the requisite level. And if it was not taught in English as a first language, then our English language requirement would be the equivalent of an IELTS of 6.5. There are more details on the University of Dundee website, or Helen or Stafford colleagues will be able to give you more support and advice on that. Now, the other thing that we need from you, as well as this undergraduate degree and the requisite qualification in English, is some form of teaching or education experience. So if you're currently working in a school setting or an educational setting, maybe a college or a university or a training facility of some sort, then that will give you that professional experience to base your studies on, to base your reflections, to provide the context for your research. Now, if you're not currently working in that setting, but you have worked in it previously, we can also accept that as well. So these are the 3 things that you need. You need the undergraduate degree in any discipline. We don't need a particular qualification from that or grading. We don't need a first class honours or a second. We just need a university undergraduate degree. We need the English requirement, and then some form of current or prior educational experience in a professional setting. Now, this might seem a long time off because you're just thinking about applying for the course now, but we often get questions about graduation. So once you've worked through maybe the 2 modules for the postgraduate certificate, or 4 modules for the diploma, or all 6 modules for the full MEd, what you would then do is you would be put forward for the Board of Examiner meeting, and this happens twice a year. And these give you graduation points of June and November. And even if you've not had the chance to come to the UK or Scotland or Dundee up until this point, we love to see people coming for graduation. It's a great end to your studies. It's a great celebration. And the June graduation ceremony, usually we have quite nice sunny weather. It's quite warm. It's a very long sunny day because in Scotland we're quite far north, so it barely goes dark. It stays light till sort of 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So there's a great big party at the university. November, again, is a lovely celebration for anybody that was graduating at that point. You get to go to the big Caird Hall event centre in the city centre of Dundee. It's in the middle of a big square. It's a big imposing building, and you get a chance to wear your gown and to walk in. And you can see on the picture there's people playing bagpipes, and it's a great Scottish experience as well. Now, if you've not fully graduated and received your certificate, what we can give you is a letter from the graduation office to confirm that you have completed the course and you've passed your modules. And sometimes people need that because they might want it for work purposes or to apply for a new job. So if that's the case, then you can get in touch with us. But the graduation points when you'll be invited to the ceremony will be June and November. You don't have to come to those, but it is lovely if you're able to do so as well. So that's a little bit about graduation. So we're coming to the end now of the presentation, but I mentioned earlier that I'll tell you a little bit about some of the feedback from some of our students. Some quotes here on the screen. One about the fact that the student had an opportunity to carry out an inquiry into their own practice has really helped them improve as a teacher. Another student has said that by understanding professionalism and also using reflection, they're being able to take their teaching to the next level. And certainly as a master's student, that's something I found for myself when I was a classroom teacher. We get lots of positive feedback on the support. So you will have a module leader who will be an expert in the particular topic that you're studying. And you will also have a tutor allocated to you for each module who will be able to give you some formative support for your assessments and your assignments. And this quote here just says how dedicated, efficient, and how welcoming and friendly those tutors are that will give you that support. We've also had some great success stories from graduates of the MEd program at the University of Dundee going on into leadership roles. Quite a few students have gone on to study for PhDs very successfully. We've had other former students and alumni go into work in universities and work in academic careers, or others who've gone on and just extended that teaching career and just taken that to the next level, whether it's in a leadership role or whether it's becoming a specialist in an international school setting, whether it's working in inclusion with additional support needs, whether it's possibly working in early years or maybe in further or higher education as well. So always very good feedback from our students. Now, if you've got questions on the tuition fees, then the consultants at Stafford Associates will be able to help you with this. And also these are the important application deadlines. So for the next start date, which is the 29th of April, then the deadline is the 24th of March. So I don't know if I should leave that up, maybe Helen, but we've got the 2 contact details for myself and Helen there, if you want to be in touch with us. The University of Dundee website is also helpful, but perhaps I just leave those dates on there. How does that sound, Helen? And do you want to come back on and join us?
Perfect, excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard. A very informative session, and I have been working in the background, just gathering all your questions. And as I mentioned before, some of your questions are very, very similar. So let's get started on that. There's an interesting question from Michael, who is located in Qatar. I have 15 years experience in the education industry. I only have a diploma in education, which I completed many, many years ago. Please do not ask me the date. Okay. And I'm currently the assistant principal in Qatar. Will you be able to accept me on this program?
So yeah, so that's a good question. So I think what you're saying there is that you do have prior qualifications, but you also have a very strong professional background in leadership. Is that the question there? And would that be taken into consideration? Is that the
Right, yeah, because you can see from Michael's description, he's obviously an assistant principal, which is a
Yeah,
very good position.
your role.
But he holds a diploma in education, and yes, the
Yeah,
entry criteria is to have a
an
bachelor
undergrad.
degree.
Great.
Um,
Yeah. So my advice is, and I know from the admissions on the our full-time program, which we just deliver on campus, and is slightly, it's the same program and qualification, but is is obviously a slightly different route to coming through through Stafford Associates. Yes, we will consider applications for people who have that very strong professional background. So I think my advice would be to get in touch with the Stafford Associates, and I guess, Helen, they would probably question that or query that, or pass on the information to Christy, who's our program manager, who could possibly look at that. Does that sound like a sensible
that
route?
That's right, Michael. Yes, we have to obviously follow the standard entry criteria of the university, but in something like this, with the vast years of experience that you have got, would need to be looked at as a special consideration.
Yeah,
And it would go to the program leaders to obviously have a look at. So please do get in touch with your academic consultant. We'll advise as to what documents are required to be submitted, and let's get that application into the university as early as now so they can
yeah.
start that evaluation. Okay, I hope that answers that question. Right, and then we have a question from Fahida, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm looking to get into teaching, so if I start on the postgraduate certificate, would this assist me to get into the teaching industry? So I'm
Okay.
assuming, sorry, Dr. Richard, I'm assuming she doesn't have any teaching experience.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question. We get asked this quite often. If you've got absolutely no experience whatsoever, I think probably what you would be better doing is investigating things like one of the IPGCE courses, which does, the international PGCE courses, which does carry the QTS with it. The course that we're offering is very much for people who have, a bit like Michael, quite strong experience or some experience which they can base their studies on. Now, in some countries and in some regions, you might find that they would accept the postgraduate certificate as part of a Master of Education without any practical element as sufficient to allow you to teach. But we're not able to advise on where that might be or what the situation might be in that respect. So you might want to look at possible alternatives. We don't ever want to discourage people from studying with us. We would really love to have people in the program, but having that practical experience to base it on, and also we wouldn't want you to come and do the course if it then didn't lead you on to working as a qualified teacher in for example, a UK state school. I know that if all you had was the PG cert from the MEd, what they would want would be a PGCE with QTS, qualified teacher status, and this course does not give that qualified teacher status. So hopefully that's helped you a little bit, and not too disappointing an answer.
Yes, and again, our academic consultant will be in communication
Mm,
with you as well, so we'll be able to advise you of your various options on
yeah.
this.
And
Okay.
of course, there's always the possibility to do a PG cert, which will give you that QTS, and then consider master study later. And we do take recognition of prior learning claims or accreditation of prior learning claims. So if you had some credits already, you can also join the program at a slightly advanced stage as well. So again, even if you didn't apply now or it wasn't quite for you now, it's something worth considering in future.
Absolutely. And just on that QTS vein, there are quite a lot of questions around QTS, but in
Yeah.
a nutshell, how can I get my QTS if this program does not offer the QTS route?
That's a very good question. What you would have to look at is different providers that include that. And I do know that some universities in the UK, we don't have this with Dundee, but some universities in the UK offer what's called an IPGCE. And I think what they do there is they deliver it in connection or conjunction with somebody on a local level who then is able to oversee the placements and check the placements. but this course does not have that option built in, and we don't have the links in the various schools around the world to be able to do that, unfortunately.
And what we do advise, I'm just going to add on to what Dr. Richard has said, but what we also advise is once you have completed the program, do get in communication with QTS directly. They evaluate each student's application. They will look at your working experience. They would look at your qualifications that you have achieved, and they'll be able to also advise you as to how to get that QTS. And there are various routes in order to get that.
Definitely.
So we do encourage you to get directly in touch.
Yeah, and so, some schools, and so if I take the UK as example, the reason we stress that the UK state schools requires in Scotland and England and Wales require a specific form of qualified teacher status. There are also non-state schools in the UK, independent schools, who might not necessarily request that as well. So if you're looking at working in the international schooling sector, it's probably a good idea to do a bit of research and speak to maybe some principals, teachers, some head teachers in those sectors, and ask them as well. And if it's a particular region or jurisdiction you're planning on working in, again, do some research around that and ask them. They will have details on what they will accept and what they won't accept.
Very true. Good point there, Dr. Richard. Excellent. The next question is pertaining to specialization. If I happen to choose a specialization, can I change it halfway through my course and choose another specialist route?
The quick answer is yes, you can. The reason that we would try to get you to think about early on what you want to do as your specialism, because you can then build that into the earlier modules. So anybody doing the normal 3-year Master of Education route starts with the module reflecting upon practice, where you think about your prior experiences of teaching. You look at some of the theories relating to reflection. You think about the teaching as a profession, and what are the aspects of professionalism. And if you know that you've got a specialism planned in, say, international education or inclusive education, or maybe nursery education, working in kindergartens or something, it allows you to develop that specialism from an early stage. Now, say you opted to do something like international education, but then after that first year of having done the international education module, you suddenly found you had the opportunity to specialize as possibly a special educational needs leader, or additional support needs leader, or working in a specialist setting where inclusion was important. What you could do is you could get in touch with us, or through Stafford Associates as well, and we could look at that, changing the option. And this is one of the advantages of the modular route, is that you can make changes. Now, we try to discourage it, because the idea is that you're building this from the beginning, and it gives you that continuation throughout, and it will make your studies more successful. But yeah, you do have that option. The named award element of the program is quite interesting. For some people, it doesn't really matter at all, because all they want is this master's level study, and they want to select different areas to develop as broad an expertise as possible. And then for another group of people, it really is important. So maybe you want to pursue that career in student support, pupil support, learner support, inclusion. So that's what you set out to do, and to learn as much about it as possible. So this idea of a specialism, for some people it really is important. For other people, it's not quite so important. And from an employer perspective, again, it would be down to what they would be looking for. If they want that real specialist, then absolutely. But if they're just looking for somebody that's got a very strong, deep knowledge of pedagogy, of education, and can be research informed, then the MEd, the master's level qualification, is more than enough, I think, in that situation.
Absolutely. Good. And an interesting question from Tuwayo, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Tuwayo is based in Kenya. My question to you, Dr. Richard, is this program internationally recognized? I have got a position to go to the USA to teach. So will I be able to teach with this particular qualification in America?
Okay, so my advice again would be to check with the employer, with a potential employer, and the best thing to do is then to tell them the name of the course that you're planning on studying or you've started studying, and give them that as much information as possible. The United States is interesting because it's so big, and because you've got the different the federalized system. Different states will have different requirements, and in some cases they might have a local qualification test you need to go through before you can actually teach in their state-run schools. So my advice would be to contact them directly and say to them, I'm planning on doing this course. Does this prepare me? Does this adequate, along with your prior experience and any prior qualifications you've got, do the two together adequately prepare me for that? And again, it would probably depend on whether the school is maybe in the international schooling sector, which is independent, or whether it's one of the federal state-run schools as well, where the rules and regulations might be a little bit different.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good advice there. Okay, so this is pertaining to English, the IELTS. Do I really have to do an IELTS exam? Is there any other way that I can meet the English requirement? Okay. Dr. Richard, okay, you can go.
Yeah, I'll say very briefly. Unfortunately, there isn't really a quick route round it. Because all the assignments are in English, and a lot of that self-study I mentioned will be reading resources, papers, books, which will be in English as well. I mean, we do allow people to bring in resources and sources from alternative languages, but predominantly because the course is taught in English, we do need that, and it's at master's level, that minimum requirement. Now, there are different qualifications that the University of Dundee accepts, and they change from time to time, so it's worth checking the website, which will give the exact details of what is required for that. And Helen, can you give any more advice on that? Because I imagine you get this question fairly regularly.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was going to add there as well to Dr. Richard's answer, is that if you do get in touch with your academic consultant, we'll be able to give you some guidance as to what the university does accept. Yes, Dr. Richard said there are qualifications, but there are also other forms of tests or ways to actually meet this English requirement. And it does really depend on your qualifications, on your working experience. There's quite a lot of things that we actually look at and advise you based on that. So please do get back in touch with us, and we will be able to assist you to meet that English requirement. Okay. Right, and then we have an interesting question also from, now I'm going to try and pronounce this name. It's Thupuwayo. I think that's how you pronounce it. Okay. If I do register for the full program, how many years does it take for me to exit on a postgraduate diploma level?
Sorry, can you say that again? Sorry.
If I register for the full program, how many years would it take for me to exit a postgraduate diploma level?
Okay, that's a great question. So you can absolutely, a lot of people choose to do one of two things. They potentially can sign up for just the certificate or the diploma, and then choose to stay on and continue to complete the full MEd because they're enjoying it so much and they're getting so much out of it, or their circumstances change. The alternative is you can sign up for the full MEd or the diploma and leave at diploma or certificate level. So there's the flexibility built in to do that. If you plan to do that, then just make sure you stay in touch and let us know, whether it's through Stafford or whether it's your advisor of studies or both, as soon as possible, so that they know and we can put you in touch with the administration team to do that. How long will it take you to do the diploma? Well, the diploma is the 4 modules. So assuming that you're starting from the beginning without any prior credit, then normally it would be 2 years, because it takes roughly 6 months to do one of the modules, because you have your study time, you have your assessment, and then the feedback comes to you before that you start the next 26-week block. So they're basically 26-week blocks, the two half years. It's not quite semesters, but the year is divided in half. So you'll be looking at 2 years for the 4 modules. You can do it slightly quicker, and that's involving the fast track route, where you could do up to 2 modules within the 6-month period. So effectively, you can finish a diploma in a year. our advice would be to you that maybe you're on a career break, you're not actually working, then that's manageable. You can probably do that. If you're working full time, and sometimes people might be in management or leadership roles, and your 40-hour-a-week job might actually be 45 hours or even 50 hours, adding 2 modules study on top of that can sometimes be a real challenge. So by all means, you can sign up for the full MEd and exit with a diploma after 2 years. But if when you originally apply, you decide to go for the fast track, you can even do it slightly quicker than that if you wish.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As Dr. Richards was saying, just be very mindful if you are going to do the fast track. There's a lot more hours that you have to put in to make sure that you do complete it in that one year. Okay, so a very interesting question has come through from Amira. I have completed a similar master's at another university, which is unfortunately not locally accepted. My question, if I do this program, will I get exemptions for any of the modules that I have completed?
The quick answer is possibly yes, and it depends on how recent it was, the study was. So what we normally look for is that the study was 5, maybe to 6 years in the past, and the reason for that is we want the research that you've been basing your studies on to be current and up to date. And it needs to be at the requisite level, which is in Scotland we call it SCQF, which is a Scottish Qualifications and Curriculum and Qualifications Framework level, but it needs to be master's level, so above undergraduate. And the credits and the indicative content need to match. So for example, if you'd previously done a master's and you did a master's level module in additional support needs, special education needs, inclusive practice, then you may be able to apply for recognition of prior learning for that module to replace the inclusion module. You may have done a module on reflective practice, for example, and if that was the case, you could apply for recognition of prior learning for that to take the place of the reflecting upon practice module. And that would then give you advanced entry to the program. You wouldn't need to pay the fees for that, and you would then be able to complete it quicker. So I think getting in touch with the academic consultant would be a good start point for that, and then you could make the inquiries with on the applicant's behalf to the university. Helen, does that sound reasonable?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd like to just add there that if you are going to be looking for any exemptions, you must try and submit a description, a module description.
Yeah.
Or a student handbook, anything that the academics at the university can actually map the modules that you have completed with the modules that they're currently doing in this program. That's very, very important. Okay, so your academic consultant will again advise you as to what documents the University of Dundee really needs to have so that we can get the process going for you. Okay. All right, and a question has come through from Mohammed. Do I have to be teaching in an IB curriculum school to do the IB certificate?
Okay, so the quick answer is no. There are 2 routes available depending which certificate it is you want to go for. And I'm going to try and go back to the slides actually when I talk about this, because one of the routes doesn't require you to have that prior IB experience. So let's just go back to it there. So these were the 3 different options. And as you can see, if you wanted to do the certificate in leadership practice, or you wanted to do the advanced certificate in leadership research, then neither of those require you to have international baccalaureate experience. So you have an option at PG Cert level or an option at full MEd level to do an IB focused master's qualification, which also allows you at the end of it to apply for the IB certificates. The one that is slightly different is the advanced certificate in learning and teaching research, and that's the full MEd, and this is if you do have 3 years of experience. So we sometimes get people who may be IB principals or experienced IB teachers, and they want to go down this one because the teaching is slightly different, whereas these include the top 2 include some teaching and some expertise and specialism in the IB sector to get you to that level so that then you can start looking for jobs and applying in that setting. So yeah.
Good. Okay, so I hope that answered your question there. And popular question that has come through, and I can see that two people have asked the same question. Can I attend this full-time in the UK after a year or so? Are there any classes there that I could do?
Right. Okay. Now, Helen, you might need to help me on this one. I do know in the past we have had somebody who had been studying part-time and then converted to actually coming to the UK and finish off the masters with our full-time version. But our full-time masters is not administered through Stafford Associates, is it? So I think that we would have to view each individual case as it is, but I think the best thing to do is probably view them as separate courses, because we don't have a formal route to doing that. So I don't know if you can add any more to that.
Yeah.
The reason being there are visa requirements for the UK to be a full-time student, and if you are only coming to do 2 modules or 4 modules, they will not class that as you being a full-time student. Now, if you've got UK citizenship and you're a UK citizen, then it would be very easy, because you would have done some modules, you'd effectively then exit with, say, your PG certificate, and then you would apply effectively to join the full-time course, and we would give you recognition of prior learning. But the difficulty comes with a full-time on-campus masters is this issue around visas, and the government are changing these guidelines quite regularly in the UK. So it would always be worth going to the government website and checking out what they're saying. So yeah, Helen, do you want to add any more to that?
Yeah. Dr. Richard is quite correct. There's quite a lot of things that the university would need to look into. Firstly, they would need to see at what stage you are in with your online program. And can you then really effectively slot into a full-time program? Would you miss, 3 months or 6 months? It really does depend on that. The other thing is, which what Dr. Richard was actually mentioning as well, is for you to actually physically live and work in the UK, then perhaps there is a consideration for you to swap to a full-time program. But if you are on the online program and you only want to go and do 1 or 2 modules there, that unfortunately will not be permitted. Okay, so you have to be permanently living and working in the UK to look at a consideration on going full-time on campus. Okay, so I hope that kind of clarifies that sort of scenario, but it's a very popular question that comes through.
I think, Helen, I think actually a lot of students would quite like that flexibility option, and I think the universities would like to offer it as well, and I'm sure you would like to have some sort of flexibility in that, but these are things that the government give guidelines on if you're applying for a visa. So unfortunately, and I suspect it would be similar in places like Australia and the US and other countries as well too. So
absolutely. And then a question has come through about, do you offer any live lectures throughout your program, and are these mandatory to attend?
that's a really great question, and I probably should have said a little bit more about that, shouldn't I, in my presentation? Yes, we absolutely do. So depending which module you're studying, if I take the very first module, reflecting upon practice, as an example, the current module leader for that is somebody called Pete Wright. Pete is a secondary maths teacher by background, but he's been working in teacher education for many years, and he worked at the Institute of Education in London before he came to work with us at the University of Dundee recently. And Pete will be the module lead for that particular module. And when you begin the course, he will communicate with you, and you'll be invited to an introduction webinar, which is streamed online through our virtual learning environment, which is a bit like a portal. You've probably used Teams before, you'll have used things like Zoom. It's a similar version to that, but it also includes the facilities for us to upload lecture materials and PowerPoints for you, and have little recorded videos for you to watch back later, and discussion boards, and access to the reading list which the library provides remotely, so you can look at books and journal articles. So you'll have an introduction session, and then there'll be a a module planner made available for you, which tells you when the teaching will take place. Now that teaching will be at, sorry, just bear with me a second. That teaching will be at a time that suits the students in the cohort, in the group, and sometimes the module leader will say, look, if this is not quite suiting you, we can perhaps change the time. But even then, if it didn't quite fit with the time that you wanted to attend, everything will be recorded for you. So say, for example, you're working in a school and something comes up, maybe you're a principal or a vice principal or a leader in school, and you suddenly have some important meetings and you can't make the talk webinar that night, then it will be recorded and it will be made available the next day for you. So you can then go in, you can review it, you can watch it. And you'll also be given access to a tutor. So it could be the module lead, but it might be somebody else who will be available to give you a bit of guidance, a bit of support, and maybe meet with you for a remote tutorial as well. So we try to create this blended learning approach, which includes access to live teaching if you wish to come along. And a lot of those sessions are quite interactive, so people can turn their cameras on, can chat, they can put comments in the chat function in the software we use for it. Or if for whatever reason you can't access that, all that is made available to you later, so you can study in your own time. Because we understand that people in different parts of the world, in different settings, with different personal circumstances, will be accessing the learning in many different ways. So yeah, so the answer to that is there will be live teaching, and it will be recorded for anybody that can't make it, and all that will be communicated to you at the beginning of each module.
Excellent, good. And we have one final question from Michael. Does the university provide a taster module before applying to see if I can cope, or if this is the program for me?
Oh, good question. At the moment we don't have anything like that. I can have a chat with the program director, the program lead, Anna Robb, about that, and we can maybe get in touch through Christy possibly to see if we've been able to make anything available to people in advance to see a little bit like what you'd be studying. If you've studied at degree level before, then it's the next step up, and for some people that might seem quite a big step. But if you think about your own school-based education, when you moved maybe from from middle school to high school, or within high school you move from from one year to the next, it's almost like that step there. The studying online is a little bit different to being in a classroom. So sometimes people find that a little bit more challenging, because there is that freedom effectively for you to access the teaching as and when you want to, and access the materials and the tasks and the activities. The challenge then is being disciplined with yourself to make sure, as you would probably expect your own students to do, to manage their time, to work through that as and when you can, so that you can meet the deadlines, so that you can submit the assignments as well. We do have the option for extensions. So if you were struggling, then you could apply for an extension. Your advisor of studies will be somebody who can give that informal, we call it pastoral support. I suppose it's a bit like having a guidance advisor in a high school, or somebody that would give you advice on more personal related issues. So that person can support you with that. At the moment, though, no, we don't have an example of a sort of a taster module that we could make available. But I'll mention that to Anna and Christy, and Helen, perhaps when in some of your meetings with them, you could perhaps see if we might be able to at least make something available, unless you know of anything that we've provided in the past.
Right. No, that's actually a very good question from Michael. It actually hasn't been asked before.
Yeah.
So I think it actually is a very good idea to have a chat, to the program leaders, and see if there is something that we can provide, to Michael and to other students that would also be interested. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I've managed to group all the questions and go through all the questions. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Lovely questions this evening. Again, Dr. Richard, always a pleasure to have you with us. And as you can see, Dr. Richard has quickly gone through the slides. Again, the application deadline is looming. There are limited seats available for the program. Please do try and get your applications in by the 24th of March at the very latest. The program starts on the 29th of April, and I hope to see you all on our program. Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Richard. Good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you.